Okay, so like I said, we're here tonight, Adam and I, and we are tag teaming this really meta session here in Zoom, talking about Zoom that you will be Zooming with your students later, right? It's like thinking about all of these things into this platform that, like, it was such an anomaly to begin with. Like, how many Zooms were you on before COVID? And now it's like my 88-year-old grandma's like hosting Zoom meetings. So again, like, this is a great session to explore this tool, um, and also find ways to engage our students in learning, right? If this is the tool you're working with, if you're a distance learning teacher, or if you're connecting with students on Fridays at this time, or if we move to a level 3, moving into this platform so that we can support our students. And that's why we're here. So before we get started, we was like, you know what, as you have questions about Zoom, don't just hold it into your brain. Okay, you're going to put it in a place and you're going to put it in the chat. Okay, because as you're going through, you're going to think about things that you want to do with Zoom, and you're like, oh, is that going to work? Oh, is there this thing? So put it into the chat. If we can't answer it right away, we'll make sure to come back at the end to make sure that we get some of those. Just like, no question is a bad question. Just put them in there. Um, and then we're going to go ahead and put this link into the chat. Got that for you. This is, we're going to we're going to link out to some things today. And instead of putting a whole bunch of links into the chat, we're going to just give you a document with all of the links. Let's see here. That should take you to the Word document we created with some different pieces that we'll refer to throughout the session. Um, so uh, before we get started, we're just talking a little bit about how the night is going to be set up, or our session. We're going to start by talking about the purposes for the Zoom. I'm going to just kind of give you some ideas, like just throwing ideas out there of like how you can use Zoom and what approaches and things that, like, just best practices for your Zoom sessions. And then Adam's going to get in and do some demoing of what it actually looks like. There's things that you can play around with as a participant, but when you host your own Zoom meeting, it's really like about some tips and tricks for getting in and using some of the features within there. So the question that you have to ask yourself when you're setting up your Zoom is like, why am I doing this Zoom? Is this like a requirement? Do I have to have this Zoom session? What am I going to do with this Zoom? Why am I asking my kids or my parents to log on to this Zoom session? And so we're one of the ways, and one of the most like frequent ways we're seeing Zoom be used is with office hours. Um, we have it's an opportunity, it's a consistent time where students are able to check in with their teacher. You might be inviting parents into this Zoom session if they have tech questions or things about assignments. um, this some things to think about with the Zoom is that, or a Zoom office hour, is that you might be just sitting there and waiting for the kids to show up, right? Like, oh, nobody needs me today, or maybe the kid can't log in at that time. Again, important to have that consistency, but something to think about would be like maybe communicating some possible topics that can be discussed at those office hours, because sometimes kids don't know what they don't know, and it says, hey, if you're struggling with this, why don't you come to the office hours from 8:30 to 9:30 this week? And really keeping it a routine. If you have an office hour availability, making sure that it's consistent week to week or day to day. So again, one purpose for a Zoom meeting. Another one to think about is the class meeting. We see this a lot with younger learners, really just an opportunity to connect with them on their day off. We can't see you face to face. Maybe if you're level 3 and we're not meeting in person anymore, we still need to find time to connect with students. And this might mean doing some of those classroom meeting routines like bubble up, bubble down kind of things. It might mean some lessons on social skills, practicing, sharing the room, um, uh, going from student to student and checking in with something that they've been working on. Or it could be, you're launching your Friday day, e-learning day with announcements or schedules, a way to connect, say, hey, everybody have a great day. Um, Connect with them in more of a social atmosphere, and giving them a plan for the day. Um, so um, again, thinking about this way to kind of entice the kids in, to these ones, is having these fun classroom culture building meetings on Zoom. The next one, and one where we really want to try to get to, is giving this a Zoom session as a focused instruction. I think, if you're a DL teacher right now, your Zooms are really scheduled in small groups. Um, this can look like differentiated groups for assignments, okay? Knowing your students and what they need. If you need this thing, here's the scheduled Zoom for that. Um, this could also mean scheduling Zoom sessions for groups of students to work on a project together, and you're just there as the facilitator. Um, or this might mean some intervention or direct instruction straight with that teacher. And so you're engaging those students online, talking directly to them, teaching them through that skill. So again, these are kind of just the big idea pieces of it, of a Zoom, some purposes and some whys behind you would have it. We're going to get into some details of how to engage those learners. But if you have questions about these, again, use that chat, put in questions, or even share ideas. This is a time for all of us to learn from each other too. So we've got the three kind of big approaches to the Zoom sessions. Okay, we're getting students logged on. Why would we want them there? Um, so before we get started with your Zoom session, okay, you know why you're going to bring them in. We have to think about safety. And I haven't heard anything from like issues that people are having with safety on Zoom. But we have a couple of guidelines that we recommend. The first is to find a co-host or a moderator. I think this works a lot with younger learners. Maybe that we are still developing that digital citizenship with them. Um, and having a co-host there to help monitor those things is really helpful. But that might not always be the case if you're on your own. And so thinking about, setting up your room, having that waiting room available and making sure you watch that closely is another piece. Um, Adam had mentioned, just simple passwords. If you're going to have a password, have it be simple so that they can just log in real quick. And he has a resource here too with about sharing out your link. Don't put it in a public place. That's again, like if you have a class website, don't put your Zoom link on there. Keep it in with your LMS or your parent communication app that you're using so that not anybody can get into this Zoom. And then another thing that I my I learned this as a parent is the private chat features in Zoom could be helpful, but you can't moderate that. You don't know what students are saying to each other. My second grader last year figured that out real quick on her Zoom sessions. And I was like, who are you chatting with? Aren't you supposed to be in a Zoom right now? And she's back channeling all of her friends in a second grade Zoom. So if a second grader can figure that stuff out, just make sure that those features are turned off when you're having your Zoom session with your students. So those are just some things to think about. And if you've had any issue with these things, again, put those things in the chat so that we can help you out process any of the issues you may be having. So now we're going to dive into sharing some best practices, thinking about what can we do to make our Zoom successful? So once the kids get in there, okay, what can we do so that that time isn't wasted, that it's not just a requirement or a check on your to-do list? So one of the great resources that we've been pulling from to support you guys is the distance learning playbook. This snip of the picture on your right here is an example of what a teacher uses with her students, her younger learners, of teaching those expectations for a Zoom session. We have all of the things that can go wrong. And again, it's about modeling the appropriate and inappropriate behaviors, but really just going over these and reteaching them again. we forget. I forget as adults, kids forget as adults. So going over and making sure that those norms and routines are taught, and kids understand what they look like. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to give you guys a link out to this great resource, has amazing videos. So if you don't have the book, you still have all the videos, which is pretty incredible. And we're going to give you guys a few minutes to head out to this resource. And it's going to take you directly to the module 2, which is all about setting norms. And watch one of the videos there. They're like 3 or 4 minutes long. So we're going to give you a few minutes to do that. Come back. And then in the chat, share out some of the thoughts you had on those videos. It's all grade levels. So depending on what grade level you teach, you can see there's a guy with a puppet there or whatever it is. So choose one that fits you, and then come on back to do the chat and put your thoughts in the chat. So hopefully everybody can take out to that resource. We're going to come back to practicing. Again, one of the important things with a Zoom session is establishing those norms, making sure that kids understand them and can follow through with them. The next piece here is, now that we've got them there and they know the norms and the routines that we do when we're on a Zoom, what are some tips to keep them engaged? We saw this a lot with Jim in the session in the beginning. He was kind of walking you through the strategies he was using, and one of them is greeting them by name, making sure that you're connecting with them and they're in the relationship, building that piece. One thing that I've heard from these resources, the one on the right with the structured part or with the response sheet, came from Anita Archer, as well as the structured partners idea. This is something that she used in the classroom all the time. And then when they transitioned in the spring, she would meet with students, and to get everybody talking in the Zoom, she would have those structured partners. So in the Zoom session, if I'd say, okay, Benjamin shared an answer, and then I'd say, Benjamin, let's have your partner add on to that. And then Cassandra would be like, oh, okay, I'm going to add on. I'm going to agree with that. So that you're focusing in on and calling out those students. So they're practicing that mute, unmute, mute, unmute. They've got to stay engaged. They can't, put their camera down or put their head on their desk if you're calling them out. One of the tips, Adam and I were talking through that structured partners management tip, and he's like, I don't know if I'd be able to remember who their partners were. I'm like, you don't have to, because you just say Benjamin's partner. And if they don't answer, then, oh, everybody's looking around. So you just that idea of keeping them engaged and making sure you're calling on those students as you go through. The response sheet's super easy to do. You can make an elaborate one like there is on the right with all of those different types of answers, or you can just, hold up one piece of paper and have like point to A or B or yes or no. Um, Again, really simple, easy, low tech. You're not asking them to get into a Kahoot or a quizzes or anything. Just low tech, just them and their screen, you connecting with them. Another piece, and Adam's going to kind of model this later, um, is there's the online version of the whiteboard in Zoom, but you can just use a piece of paper or whiteboard or a sheet protector with a blank piece of paper. They can be writing their answers up, holding it up as they go. And then this other piece that I was exploring was the teacher sharing their screen and sharing out a online document, a shared doc, in which all the students are adding to it as they go. So that shared document becomes something that everybody's seeing on the screen. It's like a version of the chat, but maybe all the students are doing that. And they called it like a silent interview, where they're not talking, they're responding in that shared Google Doc. And the teacher has it up on the screen and can make comments or, like, so that everyone can kind of see that conversation happening in real time. So, again, tips to just get those kids engaged. Um, you know, calling on them, making sure that they're understanding and keeping them on their toes. Um, the next piece and these management tips are make it a lot easier if your group is small. I think with our DL groups, we're trying to keep those groups smaller, and 3 to 5 might be tough if you have a ton of kids in your section. But again, like that's going to make it more personal. You're going to be able to connect to the learner, giving better feedback. So you're hearing them talk or share or think through a concept, and you're able to give them that real time feedback. If you have a smaller group. And it might not be just random small groups of students, but maybe you're pulling for a focus skill. This is that guided instruction piece. Hey, you know what? You guys are all struggling with this piece of the project. I need you all to come to this Zoom at this time. So that you can kind of all get on the same page and you can walk through that. Um, and then, if you're pulling, if going back to the purposes, if you're doing a Zoom for project work, um, don't just set up a Zoom for, the 5 kids to get together and just chit chat in the Zoom. Help them facilitate that learning by giving them specific outcomes for that work time. Say, okay, you guys we're working on this project. What are your outcomes? You have 30 minutes. What do you need to do? That allows them to be really focused in their work, instead of, getting on and chatting with their friends. Again, you want to have time for that, but you think back to your purpose. Why are you doing this Zoom? Is it for the relationship building piece, or is it for work time and skill building? Okay, so now, if you're getting into your Zoom session and you've got a lesson, and if you went to my recording effective instructional lessons, you got to have a plan. You can't just wing it in a Zoom session. You have to have something that's ready to go. And so this resource is also linked on the document we shared out ahead of time. Takes you out to some work by Catlin Tucker again, and it's her lesson setup. And again, it's not just all asynchronous, it's not all synchronous. We're working within that continuum, and a Zoom session for a live synchronous session on something that's a key skill that needs explaining and modeling might be there. And so when you're thinking about that lesson, make sure that your target is very clear and you have a structure for that lesson. Um, and not like, okay, I hope to get to these things in the Zoom session today. Have it timed out, have it paced, so that students can have a clear model of what it is that you want to teach them in that session. Um, uh, Anita Archer, for those that know that if studied some explicit teaching things, she always talks about this perky pace. We want to keep up with our students. We don't want to lose them. And so if there's downtime, if you're changing screens, moving from resource to resource, it is downtime. And you guys know it as participants in a Zoom too. Like when your presenter isn't prepared and needs to change screens or isn't ready, that downtime is lost instructional time. So those are the guidelines or the recommendations we see. And I would highly encourage you, if you want some more ideas of that engagement piece. I think one of the questions in the chat was, well, it was about how to get kids to show up. But I mean, one way to get them to show up is to keep them engaged when they're there, so that they want to come back in and participate and engage in that learning. So again, those are some tips to think through for your lesson. We're going to go ahead and do some practicing now with Zoom. So I'm going to turn it over to Adam. Adam, what do you need from me for this piece? Or do you need that slide back up? Sorry.
So the resources that we're talking about are linked up at the top. Are you talking about the resources that Katey was referring to, or the resources to the videos for distance learning? That was a quick question that came on.
Oh, that came in then. I will reshare the document again.
The screenshot. From the book. Distance. Yep.
There's the distance learning playbook, and then I also linked the Catlin Tucker article about structuring your lesson. So that's there too. I know it was hard to see everything on that screen. So if you want to see, she even shares her lesson templates for what to do. So she's got some really amazing stuff there. Okay, so Adam is going to go ahead and talk about some of these Zoom pieces. So if you don't know that Zoom has these, we're going to learn about them tonight. Adam, what do you need? Do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to do some modeling? Or you can talk me through it, whatever you need to do.
Did you want to model the whiteboard real quick?
I will model that whiteboard. Okay, so when you have, if you have the session, when you're the host of the meeting, you will have some different options for annotating and also pulling up the whiteboard. But I'm actually seeing that this is not turned on.
Okay, that might have been something we had to start up.
Because it's under a different account. Yeah, it's under my account, but I don't know if it's on this account.
You're a co-presenter.
Yeah, I wonder.
Because we switched that at the last minute, and now we're all on the same Zoom.
Yeah.
I think I can annotate over your slide.
So annotate, and that's something that anybody can do. So if I just go ahead and I'm going to click off this, and if you have a document, let's say that you're sharing a text or you want them to look at something, you might want to, okay, let's say we have our new to RCAS training module here, but we want to do some annotating. So I want to highlight some different things. You have in your toolbar, there's an annotate piece, and I believe you guys might even have access to this tonight, but you can demo by drawing and noting anything on the screen here. And this is that tip that Adam is logged in on a couple of devices. If you are able to log into your iPad, annotating using like a stylus is super helpful in that. But if you just want to do, you can add in text boxes. And as you're annotating the text or modeling, if this is that piece where you're modeling some instruction, you have this screen and the kids are seeing this. So that's one fun thing. Now, if I had my Whiteboard app, what it does is it pulls up just a blank white screen for you. And if you want to make, hey, we're going to create shared Zoom norms so that everybody who's logging on follows the same norms. That's one way you can engage students in that in a Zoom session. So you're recording that with your Whiteboard. Or you can edit any document, again, modeling that thinking or giving students that access. So Adam, since you're logged in a couple of times, do you have that annotate feature? Can you now annotate more on my screen?
Yes, I can.
All right, so now Adam's going to take over, and maybe you call on a student to say, hey, can you circle the nouns in this text? Can you find any nouns, Adam?
Yep. Person, place, or thing, right? I had to
Yeah,
think
there
for
you
a
go.
second
Look at
there.
those. And those, what kind of nouns are those, Adam?
Proper nouns.
Oh, thank you. So again,
Am I right?
yeah, easy way to share the
Oh,
screen and share the work. I'm not doing all of it. I might model it first, but then I might call on somebody to engage in that. All right, so that is annotate and or the whiteboard part of that. So,
mhm. And one of the other fun whiteboards that you can use is Jamboard, and I know that you guys have talked about it a little bit with some of the things that you've done with Katey and her group, but it deserves just another real quick plug because this a Jamboard can be collaborative with the kids, and it can also take the place of Padlet. And I know that Padlet's changed their format a little bit. Now they require everybody to pay for Padlet. Well, there's a sticky note feature in Jamboard that allows you to create sticky notes just like you would in a Padlet. And that also has an iPad app, so you can use a pen on the iPad or an Android tablet or something like that. So that's annotating.
I'm going to go ahead and stop my share on that, Adam. And then if you want to pick up for anything that you, the screen sharing, we talked a little bit about that, but we're actively doing that tonight between participants, between hosts, is sharing that screen back and forth. So if a student wants to share their screen or their presentation, they absolutely can.
And we'll link in a video for how to allow kids to share their screen. Usually that's turned off by default if you're using a K-12 Zoom account, but you can just go down to the share button and click the advanced settings and then allow those kids to go ahead and share their screens too. We know that their webcams, they can share through that, but sometimes they have a picture or a presentation that they want to share to the class. And that's another good way to engage kids is by giving them the chance to share something that they've created or done. So we'll put that link into that resource page. I actually don't have it built just yet, but I will.
Okay, thanks, Adam.
Okay.
All right.
Of course, recording lessons. You can use Zoom to record not just something that you do with the kids, but you can use it to just record a screencast if you want to. If you get really good with Zoom, you can open up a meeting with just yourself and record that. And as soon as you stop the meeting, it will convert that over into an MP4 that you can then upload to YouTube or your learning management system. Zoom is pretty universal. It'll pull up anything that's on your screen. So anything that you can pull up on your computer screen can become a resource for your lessons, including Active Inspire flip charts or PowerPoint or your DocCam or something like that. So keep that in mind as far as another screencasting software. And then we talked a little bit about nonverbal feedback. So I'm going to jump into using an additional device to possibly use as like a dot cam. Are we supposed to be done at 7?
Sorry,
Or is
say
it
that again,
7:50?
Adam.
Are we supposed to be done at 7 or 7:15?
7:10. And
Oh,
then
7:10. Okay.
we're gonna just finish up here in the next, yeah, a few minutes, and then we're going to launch right into the debrief. They just have a couple of things they need to do before they
Yeah.
head out.
So I think this is going to be the last thing that I share. But Katey mentioned that I was signed in as two people. So you see me come up as two people. Basically, what I've done is I've downloaded the app onto my iPad, and now this one's a little bit trickier because you've got to have the gallery view up. But oh no, I should pop up since I'm talking. But basically, what I can do is I can. Um, Share my dot cam here. So I'll start my video. Oh, there's me. And then all I've got to do is switch that around. And then now you can see my cans of beans. I've got them stacked up. Basically, I can set this over here and it becomes a makeshift dot cam. So anything I do down here, whether I'm working with manipulatives or anything like that, that's all going to be part of my Zoom. So if you don't have a dot cam or you're at home and you want to make something on the fly, or you just want to show a great picture of a well organized cubicle, then this is the way to do it. Just download the app onto your device and sign in twice to your Zoom meeting. And I think that about covers it for me.
Yeah, and you know, you might not have another device, but like Adam, has suggested just using your phone for that dot cam is a really helpful. I was playing around with it, logging in and using the whiteboard feature, and being able to share my screen here so that the students see like the big picture, white whiteboard screen. So that is definitely a nice feature of Zoom to use there if you want to record things or just model a problem, whatever it is. Okay, so if there's any questions about Zoom or things you're wondering, um, we are here for those. You can put those into the chat. Um, I am just going to need a second to pull up some of the debrief things, and then we will wrap up for this evening and get you guys on your way. So just hold tight, Adam. You can check the chat if they have any specific questions.
No, but I do keep going back to engaging kids and getting kids to be part of your Zooms. Uh, if you're not a distance learning teacher, it's a really good idea to go ahead and continue to do Zooms on the e-learning Fridays, just so that becomes part of the kids' routine and they understand the norms. So if we are thrust into level 3 at a moment's notice, you don't have to go back and reteach the kids how to do a Zoom. You can just hit the ground running. One of the things you do kind of want to keep in mind, though, is I think limiting those groups to smaller groups, the kids will get more engagement with you. And so, of course, they'd want to be on those Zooms more often. And then it, I know that I think it was Tara or Jim said this at the beginning. I just want to reiterate, if you are scheduling Zooms throughout the day and those kids are at daycare or with grandma, they might not necessarily be able to get onto those Zooms with you. So you might want to do a survey with your kids and find out alternate times that might work too.
Thanks for your thoughts on that, Adam. And I will just add too, like letting them know what the Zoom is going to be about. We talk about those purposes and enticing them. Like leave it into like a little mystery. Like, and we might do something, fun. Yeah, like I think that sometimes, students have this idea that okay, I have to do my Zoom. It's a checkbox, right? But I think that if we push ourselves to like say, okay, this is going to be super fun, give them an outline, give them an agenda. This is what we're going to do today. Hop on, let's have some fun. prizes, whatever, I don't know, but like, it's really about that engagement piece and making it fun and exciting. I just think that, the video of the puppet, I know that like we don't all teach preschool and it's not going to sell for every age of kid, but find something that does sell and share it, because they will show up, especially, if it's engaging. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and